first two are the fractures tests. And the first one is POTS compression, where you're squeezing it. And the idea, remember how we said the talus drives up the middle of the tib and the fib, and so what you're doing is you're literally trying to jam it up there and spread it out. And diastasis was that term for spreading. So I'm trying to cause diastasis in the first one and in the percussion test as well. Percussion allows you to actually squeeze it all the way along, but you can also drive it up here. Like you can press it up or you can tap it. So POTS compression, it doesn't matter so much. I always start, when I'm doing a fracture test, if I know that the fracture might be down here, I may start by using my fingers to move down the whole line of the tibia till I get closer to that. And that will also, it's almost a form of compression or squeezing. But what this test says is, if I squeeze up here, and I can squeeze the two bones together, and I can move my hand down and squeeze them, at some point I'll cause diastasis. Usually if it's up here, it's going to spread the bottom more. So if I move too far down, I'll end up holding it together. So you have to make sure that you're squeezing high enough up so that you cause that spread of the diastasis.
And you'll see it?
And you'll feel it, really. You're looking for that, you will see, but if you keep your hand here, you'll feel it. So this one, I feel it. This one allows for the spread. And that really talks about whether there's a fracture in the malleolus. It doesn't necessarily isolate the malleolus, but it indicates that if these guys are spreading out and they're really sore, and the patient says, ouch, there's probably a fracture in here. The second one is also a malleolar fracture, but it's more specific to the malleolus. So if I drive or force diastasis, so instead of spreading it like this, right, so where it goes like that, like the opposite of chopsticks, yeah, is this way, I'm jamming the heel up. So I can take my hand and I can actually jam it up and I can move it around a little bit, or I can tap it. And that tapping will more or less drive the vibration up, but they'll feel it in the malleolus if there's a fracture.
Isn't it bad though if you do have a fracture, you start doing that?
Well, part of the thing we said was don't be scared away from a thorough assessment, because the idea is you're not going to jam it, you're not going to go hard, but even just a little bit of tingling or vibration will cause that vibration, that like a malleolus fracture. So that's usually all you need. But if you are so afraid to even do that you might miss something. So it's important to not put them into too much pain, but at the same time do a thorough assessment. So if they can tolerate that, you can even go a little bit further. If it's a little cracked malleolus, it won't be a big deal. If it's a complete fracture all the way through, you'll see the deformity. You probably won't go any further in your testing.
Couldn't you damage your athlete a little further if you do something like that? Like, I'm not saying you can smack their heel. But
Yeah. If it's completely broken off, I'm not going to do that test, because I can probably see it and I can palpate it. I've determined that in my palpation.
Hairline fracture or something?
Yeah, they're going to feel that, and you're going to definitely. So no, you can't. You're not necessarily going to. If you're getting your fingers in and you're grinding too hard, then you could possibly cause. So you have to determine that severity. Okay, so let's move on to the anchor stability test. The anterior drawer test really determines the damage of the anterior talofibular ligament. And the idea of it is it's resisting you from sliding forward. So an anterior drawer, I'm literally going to hold the heel and I'm going to slide the drawer forward. I'm going to try and open that drawer. So a posterior drawer would close the drawer, and anterior pulls it forward to open that drawer. If the anterior talofibular is implicated, it's going to hurt to do that, or I'm actually going to get a little bit of movement where I might not otherwise. So I just hold the heel and I slide it forward, and that usually gives me enough sense. A positive test occurs, so when they say negative test, that means there was no movement or there was no pain associated. A positive test implicates that anterior talofibular. Now you can move it on and do a test for all the ligaments. So you can determine the extent of the inversion. If it's not only just the ATF, but it actually includes the CF and the PTF, the calcaneal fibular and the posterior. So what you would do in this one is called talar tilt test, and you're literally getting your fingers in to feel the talus, and then I always use my heel to do it, but what I'm trying to feel in here is if it's moving, if it's allowing me to do it. So I might even point my toes down, and I might even move it this way to get the ATF, right? Because we're pointing down, plantar flexed, and then rolling. Or I keep it at 90 degrees. and I go this way to get the back ones. So it's really a matter of getting your hands in and really rotating it to see if you can feel what's going on in there. So ATF is isolated here, CF is implicated straight, and so is the PTF. And because if you've stepped down into the pothole, that ATF is the first one to go. You want to know, did it get the other two as well? Okay, so that's one of them, is really just this, you're just literally tilting the talus. You're really just tilting it like that. And you can see there, you can see the hand position. I've got hand on my heel and I'm rotating it this way, or I'm keeping it up like that and I'm rotating it this way. Does any of that hurt? No. Okay, now I want to know, well, what if it's the deltoid? So what I'm going to do on the deltoid is, now I've got this ligament that comes like this. So you're literally just holding it, and then you're taking the, so just relax your foot for me, yeah. You're literally taking this forefoot away from it. I mean, it's almost like a tailor tilt the opposite way, but all you have to do is grind the forefoot away from it. So you're trying to stretch this one. And if it's a deltoid, it will stretch away, like it will hurt. It'll move. So lower leg stabilized, foot is rotated laterally to stress the deltoid. And then finally, calcaneal rock. So the calcaneal rock is performed to determine the presence of what's called medial translation. Movement medially. It translates, it moves, it slides across itself. Of the calcaneus on the talus. And again, getting your fingers into that talus is really important, and you're literally just rocking it. You're sliding it around and you're rocking it. I mean, you can get a lot of movement in there. I'm not tweaking those ligaments so much. I'm just trying to see if they're moving, because that means probably the calcaneal fibular is implicated, as well as maybe one of the ATFs or the PTFs. Okay, so again, 4 tests. This is the best one. I always do this one first, ATF, and then CF and PTF. Because once you know that, then you really don't need so much for the other tests. Okay, so now Darren's going to roll on his stomach. Now what happens for the Achilles tendon is, if your gastroc contracts, it should move the Achilles tendon, like it should move your forefoot, right? So the idea is, if I contract my gastrocnemius, it causes me to plantar flex my foot. So if I squeeze, just relax. Can you lay it down and relax it? You're on a beach in Maui.
Pardon me?
You're on a beach in Maui. Okay, so when I squeeze it, see, I'm making it move, right? So that's normal. That's a normal test. If there's a tear or a rupture or there's a problem, then it's not going to move that. You're not going to get that movement through there by just squeezing this. Now, sometimes what happens is the Achilles will tear right off its contraction, or right off its insertion, and so what happens is then the whole thing rolls up and it snaps up into the back of his knee. It's like a fruit roll-up injury, right? It's graphic. It has a big bump in the back, and you don't have any. That's where you'll see the deformity. So I'm looking to see that there isn't a tear, and I'm looking to see that there's not a complete rupture. And if I move this, I should be able to move his foot a little bit to make it contract. Okay, flip over. That's the last one. Oh, syndesmotic sprain, same thing. You're causing diastasis, but you're looking now to see, not that it doesn't hurt at the malleolus, but now if I squeeze it up here, I'm causing diastasis, right? And I can even squeeze down here to see if it spreads it out that way, right? To see if the syndesmotic sprain is somewhere in between those two, so that you can move all the way down. Once you've ruled out fracture, then you can do the special pathology ones. I think that's the last one. Tunnel sign. Tapping right behind the ankle bone, just right here. And remember, so feelings associated with nerve injuries, those are numbness, tingling, burning, aching. Those are descriptions that the athlete might tell you, eventually to the point where it may denervate the muscle. So what I'm trying to do back here is see if there's any impingement or any maybe even swelling that's pressing on that nerve. So I come back here and I tap it, and Tunnel sign is positive for maybe a compression on that nerve, and it might elicit some tingling and numbness down his forefoot. And so it'll say, oh yeah, I can feel it, or prickliness. That's all there is to that one. A listening Tunnel sign. And that's the last one. All right.